Jesus is the one, tell him all please. Never hide the sun, brother, let him all see. Cause he gon' be the one that can set us all free.
All right, the question for 717 this week, there's two of them. One has to do with this question about what do you do if someone's praying and they don't have their prayers answered? What do you say to someone who's been faithful and they're praying and their prayers aren't answered? And the answered prayers and non-answered prayers are complex because I too have prayed passionately for things that God answered no. And there's a couple of specific examples that I can think of that now I'm really thankful he did say no. That helps in that regard sometimes. But I can also think of times where God said no to prayers I passionately prayed, and I'm waiting for the time I get to heaven that I have clarity on those things, because I don't think they were prayed with selfish motives. They weren't even prayed for me. They were prayed for someone else in need. As a pastor, I regularly am praying for people who are in desperate situations in relationships or health or things like that, and praying, asking God to intervene. And that is hard because how do you balance those things? You can't always see what God is doing. You can't always see why those prayers aren't answered. Some of it may be that you're praying for people who they themselves are in open rebellion and hostility to God, and you can't overcome that. In some cases, the person that's praying, they may be praying with wrong motive, that their hearts are really in the wrong spot there. Some of it is that the prayers that they're asking for would actually be detrimental to them. I've even seen situations of prayers for health, and Lord, restore this person, and had God not answer those prayers, but then to look later and see how God used, even in that circumstance, to bring about some really amazing things through that. And so that makes it really tough. There's no monolithic answer to these things. They're complex because God is not a cosmic ATM machine. There's not a code that I can give you or that the Bible gives you that you punch in somewhere and then you just get out of the other end of that machine whatever request you want. And if you just know how to punch the code in, because it's a relationship. And that's why for a child, sometimes a parent says yes to things and sometimes a parent says no to things. And the 3-year-old may not completely comprehend why, and they'll struggle. Sometimes they get it. Sometimes they're like, okay, when I ask this of Mom, will you play with me? Or Dad, will you play with me? And it's this circumstance and this situation. They always say yes to that. But sometimes the child will ask and it's too late, and the parent knows that child needs rest, or the parent has to do something else has to be done that prevents that from happening. And so for the 3-year-old, sometimes it's confusing. Why do my requests not get answered? Or why is it sometimes the answer is no? Or why is sometimes the answer wait? And so it is between us and God. He's complex and infinite in his knowledge, and we're simple and limited in our knowledge. And because of that, when we make requests, it's hard to know exactly why they're answered the way they are. What I would say is, in all of this, though, spiritual growth and development, a trust for God that he knows what's best, a knowledge that he loves it when we pray and ask for things, especially if we're asking with the right motive. The kingdom's the focus, not our own pleasure or not our own convenience. He loves answering yes to those kinds of things, and he does it out of his infinite knowledge. And I would just say, keep praying, keep asking, and then while you're praying, look to see how God might be moving in those ways, as to how he's moving people or situations or what he's doing in our own heart and character. I remember one time passionately praying, really just praying for hours upon end for this one situation that I really wanted to go one way. And the answer was no. God just said no. And then 6 months later, I saw him answer that request in a really different way. And today, I'm so thankful that he didn't say yes to my initial request. And then looking at all that circumstance, just really thankful that he worked it the way he did. And I think many times you'll find answers like that, but not always. And on those, I would just say, my heart breaks for those who go through that situation. I've been there a few times, and I would just say, God is still good, and he's working, even though we can't see all the reasons why he's doing what he's doing. That's a great question. Prayer is one of those areas that can be frustrating for us. But again, just remember, we're not dealing with a cosmic ATM. We're dealing with a person, an infinitely good, infinitely powerful, and knowledgeable God who deals with us as individuals and in a personal relationship. And so there's no magic formula. There's no ATM code I can give you. There's no verse you can read in the Bible to guarantee the outcomes. But God is working to develop our character the way a parent develops a 3-year-old's character. And so sometimes the answer is no or wait, because that's what's better for the 3-year-old, even though the 3-year-old hates it at the time. And so we have to live our life in the prayer situation with that. The next question is, are we born with sin or just a sin nature? We are born with the sin nature, therefore we sin. Our natural bent is to rebel against our Creator because of what was passed down to us from Adam and Eve. But in addition to that, we have an environment that is conducive for sinning. So we are born with the sin nature, and what happens is that you combine that sin nature with a sinful world and sinful parents and sinful siblings to display how to sin, and we are good at catching on quickly. And so because of that, we are born with a bent towards rebellion, and then we're thrown into an environment that has rebellion everywhere we look. And so I think that's the answer to that question, is that we were born with the sin nature, and because of that, we sin, not the other way around. All right, you guys have a great week. We'll see you at 7:17.
Bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it.